Well, welcome all to the EdCuration podcast today. We're thrilled to have you today. Today we have three guests with us. We have Jason Denard and we have Melissa Mendizabal and Daviani Delgado. So they're going to give us three different perspectives on an amazing resource that they came to share today. So Jason, do you want to start by just telling us a little about your background, your journey as an educator, and how you've ended up in your current role?
Sure. Name is Jason Denard. I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning for College Achieve Patterson. We're a charter school network located in New Jersey. And I am responsible for ensuring that leaders and teachers implement the academic program here in Patterson. More specifically, in this building, I do sit in the seat of principal as well. So I work with the fine teachers and wonderful students in our school to ensure that we're also implementing our academic program with fidelity and letting our students have just awesome experiences.
Great. Can I just ask a quick follow-up question on that?
Sure.
So how many schools are in the charter school network, and are they K-12?
Yes, we are K-12. In Patterson, we have three schools. We have a K-5, a 6 to 8, and a 9 through 12. We also have schools in Asbury Park and Plainfield, New Jersey.
Wow.
And I think there are altogether maybe eight or nine schools in our College Achieve network.
Yeah. So as director of teaching and learning, and principal of the building that you're in, your plate is really full, but a big part of your job is finding and implementing the best solutions, I'm guessing, for kiddos.
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely. Just kind of finding resources that are out there and matching them with what our students need to learn, but also seeing resources out there that are different, that engage our students in different ways, which is part of the reason why we're here.
Yeah. Well, your perspective is very valuable to our listeners. So thanks for taking the time to be here today, especially at the very end of a busy school year. Melissa, what about you?
Hi, my name is Melissa Mendizabal. I have been teaching at College Achieve Patterson in the middle school for the past 3 years. I started out doing Teach for America, and I was placed in Patterson, New Jersey, which is in some way my hometown. So I wanted to come back home and teach here. I've always been a 7th grade science teacher. My first year, I taught 7th grade science. The next year, I advanced to be a grade level lead, still 7th grade science. And this year, I've had the really exciting opportunity to be the science lead for the middle school. And so I am in charge now. I still teach 2 classes, but I have much more oversight over like the science programming we do, and really just increasing STEM programming for the kids, getting them really excited about STEM, science, and hopefully, especially for our girls, to become more involved in science and STEM as they advance into high school.
Yeah, well, congratulations. It sounds like you've made progress in your career very quickly. You seem like one of those teachers who's eager for your students to have great opportunities. So thanks for joining us. Daviani, tell us about your story. You're in 7th grade, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I'm in 7th grade. Well, there's not really much about me, but I'm in 7th grade. I'm 13. I'm in robotics. I'm in the robotics team. For the robotics team, I safety captain, but like I was promoted lately. And I'm from Dominican Republic. Yeah, like I said, there's not really much about me. I'm still young.
Yeah, so you're from the Dominican Republic, and how long have you lived in New Jersey?
5 years now. Yeah.
Okay.
5.
Yeah. And you have an interest in STEM.
Yeah, I have interest in STEM. When I get older, I want to become an astronaut. Right now, like the degree I want to get like math, or like when I go is like math or biology around there.
Okay.
I think it's one thing she said that I want to just focus on. She's on our high school robotics team. She's one of the students that's helping out. We have a middle/high school robotics team, but the middle school carries the robotics team, and she is it safety captain, or
Yeah, I'm
safety captain of that robotics team that competes with students all over the state, in some cases country, and only in 7th grade. And so we're really proud to have representatives going up against students going to MIT and Stevens and NJIT, and we're bringing some of our awesome middle school students to those competitions to just experience that and be exposed to that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Congratulations to you, Daviani. That's such an admirable achievement that you've made.
Thank
And I
you.
know Davi, as her teacher for science, she does fantastic in all of her subjects.
Okay.
She loves to read. Her and I always talk about the book she's reading, and she does so well in all of her subjects. So she may have favorites, but she's just really a great student, such a great kid. So we love having her here.
Yeah, so great. All right. Well, I would love to know a little bit about, before we talk about SheHeroes, which is what you came to share with our listeners. I would love to know, was there not necessarily a problem, but maybe a need or a gap in your school or in the network that caused you to be searching for something like SheHeroes? And any of you can answer
Yeah, I'll
this.
take
Yeah,
that
go
one.
ahead, Jason.
I brought it to the team. I'm always looking for just other programs that are different, that kind of meet the needs of our students. We are located, in Paterson, New Jersey, inner city. We have some great programming through our district and through our network, but there's always little gaps to be filled. And an actual colleague who had, worked with or familiar with SheHeroes brought it to my attention. And so I did the deep dive and looked at the program, and it fits some of the things that we're trying to do here. Miss Mendizabal talked about being the lead. We call her Miss Mindy here. So
Yeah.
I may say that from time to time.
That's easy.
Mindy as a lead, who's also a Yale graduate from the city of Paterson. I have to give her a shout out as well. We're always talking about like the positions that our young girls are in, and how that they're not represented. Here we have 3 science teachers. 2 of the 3 are women. And so we're happy that, we're not necessarily falling into that trap, but we know that society is. And so when I saw SheHeroes, it just gave an opportunity for our girls to see themselves in this. And not that it's only for young ladies, but it's geared towards just getting young ladies excited about that, about those professions that exist throughout the actual program. And so it wasn't so much of a gap here at College Achieve, but more so a gap in society. And we wanted to kind of try to fill that, to hear scholars say that they're interested in becoming an astronaut and working in the STEM field. That's what we've been trying to do, and let our girls know that those fields are out there for you as well, not just for the guys that we see currently in those jobs.
Yeah, I love that. And you're right. It is a nationwide gap that we see. And it's not only a gender gap, it's also it's an ethnic gap as well. It's a racial gap. So I think SheHeroes does a great job, and we're going to hear about that, of kind of addressing all of those different gaps in the STEM fields. So for those who don't know, who are listening, can you talk a little bit about exactly what SheHeroes is?
So SheHeroes is, I almost view it as like a curriculum supplement, where it has a bunch of lessons that are introducing really hard-hitting science topics, but through almost the lens of females. And we were looking at different women in STEM. We particularly looked at one lesson talking about women in computer science and different types of AI, which is, of course, really an interesting topic, especially now with ChatGPT and everything. So what did you think of that?
Well, no, anyways, it's like, I think it's really interesting because like it's like,
You can just talk to me.
okay, it's like interesting because like there's like, you don't really see that
Mhm.
often. Like you don't really see a lot of female leads and like STEM and like technology and stuff. It's like interesting.
Right, because I think a lot of times when maybe we look at a traditional textbook, we see examples of men in STEM, men scientists or men mathematicians. We don't really get to see a lot of female examples.
Yeah.
And you were even telling me about, remember we were talking about oftentimes what happens with the women?
Yeah. So what often happens is women, like for example, their works, they get like their credit is taken away by men, and the ideas they've created are like people like the woman's creation, people will not see that it was created by a woman, it's created by a man. For example, like the atom, a woman discovered it, but people think a man discovered it. A lot of women's ideas and inventions are like the credits taken away by men.
what's included in the lesson plans or the unit or module that you get from SheHeroes?
So what we used was a lot of, first of all, just an overview of how the lesson's going to go, which I really appreciate because I like to have my hand in kind of planning my lessons. I never really will take anything completely as it is, just because I think things need to be modified for students. So because of that overview, it was actually pretty easy to do. I can almost like pick and choose what parts of the lesson, I want to introduce and put my own kind of take and infusion into it, or what parts of exactly as SheHeroes had it, I want to give to the kids. It had a lot of hands-on activities for them. And I really liked the videos it included. We actually got to watch some of the videos of the scientists themselves talking about what they do and talking about why it's important. And, they could hear me talk about these things all day, but it doesn't really matter until they see the person themselves talk about it. So that was probably my favorite part about it, is they could actually, we can't bring her in person, but that was as close as we could get. And I really loved that.
Can I add on something to that? So I remember the video fully, but it was when, you remember when they were showing the car in the video and the woman, computer science woman, I really enjoyed that. It gave me like a new, like, I don't know, another like view to see like women around cars, because this is a stereotype that women don't know about cars, and like they don't know much about like computer science. So I love that video so much.
I think for me, the area that I kind of pick out just in looking at, obviously I didn't teach it and dive as deep as Miss Mindy, but I think there was a feature that, like, based on the type of young lady you think you are, this profession might be aligned with you. So if you're an analytical thinker, or you're creative, this is a field that you might excel in, or you might be in. Obviously, it's not a perfect science, no pun intended, but the fact that someone can say, oh, I've been told I think analytically all my life. Wow, these are the professions that might enhance that or bring that out of me even more. I thought that was pretty cool too. I can't remember which one was aligned with computer science, but I know that was a feature that I really appreciated, because I think any young lady or even young man can grasp onto that. Hey, I'm creative, I can do this. Let me read more about this, get exposed to a field that maybe I haven't been exposed to before.
Yeah. So I think you bring up an important point, Jason, is that this resource is focused on females in STEM, but it's not just for girl scholars. It's not just for female scholars, right? It's for all of our scholars, and it's allowing students of all all genders to really just see the scope of what's available in STEM careers and to see themselves in those roles. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. What are some of the other, so before we go there, let me just ask, so if I'm understanding right, it's a supplemental resource that you can bring in to your classroom, to a regular classroom, or it could be implemented as its own, maybe say after school program or club, maybe, but it gives you pretty concise, fully, fully prepared lesson plans and modules that you can just sort of drop in along the way as you're going through your regular curriculum. Is that how you're using it, Melissa?
Yes, at first I think your description is pretty accurate to what it is. And I think it really can be used in many different ways. I've chosen to use it to either introduce a lesson. So if we're learning, a lot of times, which is nice, that it offers a flexibility that isn't always present in the curriculum we get, which I think is important. Sometimes we want to learn about things, teach our students about computer science, and that's not directly aligned with exactly what we're doing, but the standards align. And I think it does a really good job of matching interesting and exciting content to the standards we're learning. So I've always introduced it either as like a supplementary lesson, or I always bring it back to what we are learning. There's so many different ways it can, tendentially be related to what we are doing in class. And that's how we that's how I brought it in.
And how much class time are you dedicating for each of those lessons? And is that also flexible?
Yeah, it's definitely flexible. I've done longer lessons, or I've shortened it a bit. I would say roughly about 30 minutes.
Okay. You're using it for seventh grade. What grade levels would you recommend it for?
Good question.
I would say middle school.
Yeah.
I think you could also, a lot of it, maybe even for high school, would be as almost like a hook for diving deeper into computer science or diving deeper into biology or chemistry, really because it's just about getting them excited and saying, oh, this is actually relevant to my own life because here's a person doing a job that I could potentially have.
Yeah.
I didn't know this was even possible.
That's what I was going to say. I think the connection to a real person makes it like, okay, we've learned about this. This person did that. So now let's go down the rabbit hole and see, like, you know, what was their schooling like? Where did they go to school? How did I think that part is pretty cool too, because it's connected to a being instead of like a concept or a thing. And
Yeah.
concepts, things are great too. Don't get me wrong. I know science is connected to concepts and things, but for students connecting to a person that I can Google and see, oh, how much do they make?
They like
You
doing
know,
that.
they like that
The
part.
kids love that part.
Yeah.
They find out that people in STEM make a lot of money, if that gets them excited.
That's definitely a motivator for sure. Jason, is that one of the reasons you chose this maybe over other options, or were there even other options like this? It sounds like a pretty unique resource.
I don't think there are other options like this and just this. There are other options that might have a component of this. You know, there are a lot of organizations that are developing things for STEM things for young ladies, but it's like embedded in something else. This is for that, right? It's in the title, right? It's unapologetic that we're trying to appeal to our young ladies. Although, like you said, all genders can learn from and appreciate this. I think this was just a bit more forward, and because we do have a fairly robust science curriculum, this allowed us to do our thing and this, right? We still, you know, wanted to do some of the things that obviously we've been approved to do, right, through our stakeholders and things like that. I have to go on and say that, but this allows us to supplement that in a way that's it's not another thing. It's something that can be added in a way that's more organic. Like Melissa said, you know, we haven't done all of the lessons, right? Because we do have a scope and sequence, but it gave Miss Mindy a chance to kind of insert things where she needed to. Maybe the hook. I think that's actually one of the topics for one. I think the hook can be introduced if we're talking about, you know, space, and maybe we don't use the whole lesson, or the person, the biomedical professional might be the person we use when we're talking about biomedical ethics. Like, I think it just allowed you to kind of pick and choose almost in an a la carte way, while also teaching science to students. I think I have a question for Ms. Mindy, if that's okay, that I've never asked until
Please.
now.
Yeah.
How did the young men know it's called SheHeroes, and how did they take that? Or did you introduce it in a way that they didn't really?
So I guess two parts. I guess I have a more science teacher answer and then I guess a more personal answer. On the personal side, I really think it's important for young men to see strong females and strong women. A lot of our 7th graders see really, really strong female teachers that they have throughout the entire school, especially on our grade level. And I know that shapes how they treat and respect women. A couple of our other female teachers, and myself included, have had conversations with the boys about how we respect and treat women doing cool things. Oh, women can do science and STEM, and really helping our girls in math and science, and kind of really trying to tear down the stereotypes that girls can't be good at math or girls can't be good at science, or girls aren't the smartest. And that has just been really amazing because this program really just feeds into that. And so I always like to preface it with that and just telling, the kids that. And I also will highlight that they can also do, there's plenty of careers for men as well in these fields. It's perhaps even easier for them to get these types of careers or go into these fields. That's interesting that you asked that, because I plugged a lot of summer opportunities and camps for the kids that, for example, like Code with Classie, and then there was the Tech Trek program that are only open to women and to females, to young girls. And the boys, a couple of the boys, especially the more mature ones, have asked me, oh, why is it only open to girls? Why can't I apply? And I think that just opens up to really good conversation about, why are things set up that way? And I think they're not used to things that are unfair or larger systems at play. Most of the kids, all the kids we teach are young Black and brown girls and boys. And so they understand like their place and how sometimes the opportunities that they are afforded. And I think anytime I could open their eyes to more things, we could have more of these conversations. I think it's really valuable for them to learn how to converse and just talk about these really important topics. So it's actually been a nice conversation opener to that, especially with some of our more mature kids.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love that you're very intentionally not trying to sort of sneak it under the radar for
Yeah,
the,
no, it's not my
for the
style.
boys. Yeah. So Davi, can I just ask you, what has been your favorite thing about it? Do the lessons kind of end in a hands-on project, or how do they, what opportunities has it given you to make things or complete projects?
Well, the lessons always like they always end like, for me, I always ends up me like asking them as many questions, like if I having trouble understanding something, I ask her. Sometimes she'll give us like small projects. They like sometimes go into grades, sometimes they don't, but
What about how it impacted the science fair and the science project?
well, how it impacted the science fair, well, it was like I had more opportunities. And for example, last year I did not know about SheHeroes, obviously, and then this year I just started learning about it, and it really impacted like the way I did my science fair. Because if it was like last year I didn't know like anything about it, I probably would have not won my science fair. Honestly, all thanks to Miss Mendy, because she helped me with my science fair. Well, she didn't help me, but she like instructed me, like she helped me since my old like project, something happened to it, and then she came with the idea. We tried to do something based on SheHeroes, and it was like really good. So I won my science fair, and I'm so happy about it.
Again,
I won my science.
you won the science fair.
Yeah.
Talk about your project though. and did
Yes,
that
please.
impact that SheHeroes had, and talk about your
It was a
project.
different type of science, right? Because
Yeah.
usually, just for a little bit of background, we have 3 main units in our curriculum. We teach the kids that cover weather, and earth systems, and a little bit of ecology. So a lot of times they're not the most interesting things that kids want to learn about. They're like, can we learn about, XYZ and all these other fun things? Do we just have to learn about, weather and then the ecosystem and things like that? So SheHeroes was a really good start to say, okay, we can start learning about other things in science. And there are so many other topics in science. Introduce the kids to that. And then the science fair projects we actually just had it last week, and the kids could choose anything in science they wanted to learn more about. So a lot of the kids chose things that were on psychology, or social science, or were on chemistry, something we didn't really talk about that much this year. And so SheHeroes afforded the opportunity for the kids to really learn about the different types of science so that they could then choose that for their project.
Well, for my project, what I did was it was psychology. So we had a group of people, CSF numbers, sequence.
What was the title of your project?
Oh, my project title was
Or your research question?
okay. Well, it was can color affect memory. It was basically, there was given a sequence of 10 numbers, and there was 3 sets, and like each sequence of number had like a different background. For example, it was contrast color, it was a deep shade of a color, and then a lighter, and then it was a plain black and white one. And me and my group, we checked which of the 3 sets of numbers got the highest like memory check. And what we learned was the contrast colors. And yeah, the contrast colors, they how to explain it? They got the higher memory. It emphasizes the memory more, Yeah, so that was my science fair project. We just tested the memory, the color, what color affects the memory more. But it was contrast, black and white, or a deep color, a deep shade, and then a lighter shade. Yeah, that was my science project.
That's fascinating. How can you envision applying that in some context of business or education?
That's a good question. Well, there's a for example, there's a lot of colorblind people, a lot of colorblind people that have trouble, seeing, obviously.
Yeah.
But in business wise, I feel like when you come out with the colors, feel like there should be like a certain how to explain it. Like I feel like there should be like a way for them to be able to like see the colors clearly, because there's glasses to help colorblind people, but they're not the most advanced color. Like they're not the most advanced color glasses looking thing. But for like business, I feel like there should be like a idea to help them, like for example, like normal glasses, like the glasses you're wearing. I feel like there should be their type of glasses where you colorblind people can use, instead of the funny looking colorblind glasses they actually have. Because the colorblind glasses, they're like, if I'm not mistaken, they have like a red, like for the shade is red and the glasses are black, and you really wouldn't want to go out wearing those glasses. It wouldn't look professional in certain areas, in certain jobs. So I feel like there should be glasses, like for example, like glasses you wear, like basic eyeglasses that help colorblind people. That's like,
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's kind of surprising that nobody has created that yet.
it really is.
There you go.
It's going to be you.
There you
It will
go.
be you. Yeah.
Remember me. Remember me when you're rich.
There we go. So I have a question for all three of you, and you can go in whatever order you want, but I'm just curious if you would say that you've been able to achieve something using this resource, SheHeroes, that you wouldn't have been able to achieve otherwise, or that you weren't achieving previously.
For me, it was like programming, like with SheHeroes, I feel like my programming has gotten way better. For example, my other schools, I've never gone into programming, and then last year, since I wasn't really introduced to programming, I wasn't really interested in learning programming. And then now this year for SheHeroes, like my idea of becoming more a programmer and stuff like that has really like blossomed. I have developed like really a lot, and I'm so glad for SheHero.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that.
It's a good word.
And do they have units that are specifically focused on coding and programming? Yeah. Okay. Good to know.
You can go next.
What was the question again?
I'm just curious if there are things that you feel like you've been able to achieve. So for you, Melissa, just instructionally, I guess, as far as your instructional strategy or the content that you've been able to work with, what have you been able to achieve using this program that you weren't achieving previously, or that you wouldn't have been able to achieve without it?
The first thing that stands out to me is definitely the heightened level of engagement with all the scholars. We've done a lot of almost like career infusions via SheHeroes, where they can get to see the different careers. And there's really no replacement for getting to see somebody who is in a field really get to explain it, as personal as a video can be. And so I think the excitement and the interest in science beyond just what we're learning in the curriculum has definitely happened in a way that it hasn't in the previous years I've been teaching without the curriculum.
Great, thanks. Good to hear.
I think for me, the fact that, I think Davi's response really helps me, right? Like, Davi said last year, she didn't have that type of exposure. So not hearing that, I might have had some other like generic canned answer, just to be very honest, because I do think the program is good, but that to me is better than anything that I could say, because it shows, like I said, being a 7th grader on a high school robotics team, and to know that something like SheHeroes helped to create that confidence to compete with AP students who are in 11th and 12th grade, who may have scholarships to, Ivy League schools. And my 7th grader feels like she can compete in that space, in part to the work that Miss Mindy has done and to the program in SheHeroes. Like, I don't know if there's anything better than that.
And she's one of the only girls on the team too.
Say that again.
She's one of the only girls at the team and at the events. I mean, as you can imagine, all the events are very male dominated. So it was just really fun for me as her teacher and mentor to see when we would go to the competitions. And it's really like a stimulus overload with so much going on, especially this is Davi's first time she was going to these massive events, people walking up to you, asking questions about, oh, what are you doing with your robot for safety? How are you competing? How does the robot collect the points? And Davi really just having to represent for our team and really just looking around the room and being like, I think I pointed this out to her, like, wow, like you're not only one of the youngest people here, but you're one of the very few, girls who are here today.
And not
Yeah.
to mention like waking up at like around 5 a.m., hitting the bus, falling asleep. Oh my God.
They were long days.
Are you guys in New Jersey? Are you part of the new generation science standards?
Yep, next
You are,
generation.
okay. And so this program, talk to me about how it's not just an enrichment, supplemental enrichment. It also actually reinforces and addresses standards, if I'm not misunderstanding. Is that correct?
You are correct.
And would you say that it would pair well with almost any science curriculum? Would there be any reason that it wouldn't pair well with somebody's existing science curriculum that they're using?
I can't contrive of a reason. I think it is broad enough, and then it can dive more specifically on more detailed nuances of things that I think it really can be adapted and modified to really any curriculum. Plus the next generation standards are just pretty robust, regardless of where you are too. So it helps that it conform to, those really high level standards.
And what was the learning curve for you?
Well, in terms of the learning curve, I didn't really find that there was one. I think I've honestly felt, at least in my experience working with other educators across our network for science, that they find more of a learning curve with our current curriculum. The SheHeroes, I think it's, like I said, it's very straightforward. And most of the issue, at least that I've seen as an educator, is when you're trying to implement lesson plans and curriculum, the biggest adjustment is, where are my students' levels at? Could they handle an activity that is, this high in rigor, or do I need to add a bunch of scaffolds to make it accessible for a lot of my students?
Mhm.
And because SheHeroes is less, for me, it looked almost more like exploratory focused rather than, okay, we're gonna, assess you on these standards, we're gonna have a test on them, and we're gonna do, a lab that you're gonna pretty much do all on your own. I didn't feel like I needed to add too many scaffolds for it, especially because most of it was in really just exciting the students about what they were learning.
Mhm.
So I didn't feel like I needed so many scaffolds, therefore the learning curve wasn't really existent, if that makes sense.
Who are all of the people that you would recommend this to? So you're a middle school science teacher, but this has a broader reach. Who should check it out?
I'd say definitely all science teachers, and then, even translating that to computer science teachers, math teachers, any teacher that is in the field, I guess, of STEM, especially in high school. I think I've seen a lot of the most impacts from my students who are a bit more mature. I teach 7th grade, so it's like half of the kids are still, little baby 6th graders. Half of them are like really mature, like Davi, like I'm trying to be an 8th grader and can have a lot more emotional intelligence when it comes to these conversations and really thinking about their future. So I think high school would definitely be an avenue that I would explore. I'd be curious to see how it looks like in a high school setting. But also I think continuous exposure in middle school is really important. We've done a lot of almost like career events where the kids get to see, people who are heart surgeons and people who are computer scientists. And I think getting the kids hooked and excited in science and STEM is so important early on. I would even be curious to see SheHeroes maybe in a bit more young fashion for, elementary students, just so they could have, this initial excitement with it.
Yeah.
I feel like I would want to see SheHeroes and like more Spanish speaking countries.
It sounds like to anybody in charge of maybe after school enrichment or clubs or summer school would also be a good fit.
Even
Yeah.
because it's definitely concise enough where it wouldn't be difficult to implement in an after school program or a summer program.
Something that teachers will especially love about this, educators from all levels, is something we haven't mentioned yet, which is that it is free. It's free, right?
Free,
So
yeah.
we love free. And any teacher or educator can they don't even have to do anything. They could just go to the website, I think, right? You just download it. It's all there.
Correct.
And
All it's going to ask
readily
you
available.
is, just an email address. I'm sure that's just to, see where it's being used. Email address, grade, and then you have access to all 4 units.
Yeah, you've got.
Yeah, I think all 4 units.
Okay. Yeah. So there's 4 different units you said, and and I think that they're maybe continuously developing additional ones. So
Absolutely.
there will be there will be more to come, I think.
Yeah.
With SheHeroes.
Adding other careers, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Well, so I know, and maybe probably the career thing too. I think any school who has a curriculum or a focus on career development or career exposure, it would definitely be a good fit for them as well.
No, for sure.
So, well, I know that you all are still in school and you have a day to get to and classes to get to and all of that. So I just feel so grateful that you took the time to share with our listeners.